talk to you about trusting in the power of Jesus. Right now, I'm by some calm waters, or at least it appears that I'm by some calm waters. But life is full of storms. It's full of challenges and difficulties that we all have to face. We're going to talk today about how we can trust Jesus to help us during those storms. We all face situations and things that threaten to overwhelm us, like the waves during a storm. These challenging situations take many forms, and you might be facing many difficulties in your life. But today, in this lesson, we're going to focus on the challenge of returning to school and all the difficulties that we might face.
Coronavirus, masks, social distancing, remote learning, technology, change, sickness, and worry.
Wow, those are some pretty big waves, and those are some pretty tough challenges that we may be facing right now. But I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be afraid. You can have calm in the storm if you put your trust in Jesus, because my God walks on water, and the wind and the waves obey him. There are two specific Bible stories in which we can really see the power of Jesus. You may already know them, but even if you do, this is a good reminder for all of us. In the book of Mark, in chapter 4, we see the first story. It's also found in two other Gospels. I guess God really wanted us to pay attention to this particular story. One evening, Jesus is speaking to large crowds and to his disciples near a lake. And he says to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side." So they left the crowds, climbed into the boat, and went out on the lake. But then, very shortly, a squall, a very quick-moving, very powerful storm came up. And the disciples very quickly became afraid, just like we often do when unexpected things arise or challenges. And so they were panicking, thinking they were going to drown. Jesus, meanwhile, was asleep in the stern of the boat. So of course they ran to Jesus and they woke him up, asking for his help. Jesus immediately acted and gave his help. He said, "Quiet, be still," to the storm. The storm immediately stopped, and everything was calm again. Jesus asked his disciples why they had been so afraid. Why did they doubt? But like all of us, when challenges come up, sometimes our immediate reaction is to be afraid. But Jesus is in control. Just as we see in the story, Jesus had power over nature. He had power over the waves, power over the wind, and immediately he acted on behalf of the disciples. And he does that for you and for me. He acts immediately when we call on his name. He is for us and he is with us. He was right there in the boat with his disciples, just as he is right there with you as you return to school. Anything you need, he will help you. Just call on his name. Not only that, but in this account, we see Jesus says to the disciples, "Let's go to the other side." And when Jesus tells you to do something, he's going to be there to help you do it. And so if you're being directed to go back to school and you need to get back in there, Jesus is going to be with you. He's not going to abandon you. He loves you, he is for you, and he is with you. There's a second account in the book of Mark in chapter 6. And in this account, Jesus also shows his amazing power. Jesus is speaking to large crowds, and he tells his disciples to get in the boat and start heading to another town. He finishes up with the crowd and then goes off to pray on his own. After he's finished praying to God, he looks and notices that the disciples are in distress in the boat again, and there's a large wind that came up against them and is pushing opposite of the boat. And so he sees their distress and he walks out on the water, to get to them. It's absolutely amazing that Jesus has power over nature. And so, of course, when he arrives at the boat, the disciples are very terrified. They think he's a ghost. They're not sure what's going on. But Jesus climbs into the boat, and immediately the winds calm down. This is another example of how Jesus is with us. He goes right there to the disciples when they're in distress, just as he comes to us when we're in distress. and he has all the power to control nature and to control all the storms, all the big waves in our lives. You know, in the Bible, it says it was the fourth watch of the night when Jesus went out on the water toward his disciples. The fourth watch of the night is when it's the darkest. And when it's the darkest in our lives, when things are the toughest, it's then that Jesus comes right to us to give us his help. When Jesus arrived at that boat, and I said to you that the disciples were scared, they didn't know it was him, they were frightened, he said some words, and I want you to remember these words as you return to school. He said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." I want you to remember that. Take courage. It's Jesus. He's with you. Don't be afraid. The title of this lesson today is My God Walks on Water, and the Wind and the Waves Obey Him. I want you to remember that my God can be your God. If you believe in Jesus and you put your trust and faith in him, you can have calm in the storm if you put your trust in Jesus.